The candlelight flickered across the pristine white tablecloth, casting a warm glow on the faces of Jonathan and Victoria Hargrove as they clinked their champagne glasses. It was their 10th anniversary, and they'd chosen Le Chateau, the most exclusive French restaurant in downtown Manhattan, to celebrate. But as their waiter, a slender man with neatly styled hair and a polite smile, approached with their appetizers, Victoria leaned in and whispered just loud enough for him to hear, "Darling, do you think he's one of those? You know, the flamboyant type who probably spends his tips on rainbow parades." Huntington Rivera froze for a split second, his hands steady on the plates despite the sting of her words. He'd heard it all before, snide remarks from patrons who assumed his quiet demeanor and subtle mannerisms marked him as an easy target. But tonight, in his own establishment, the irony burned deeper than usual. He placed the escargot delicately before them, murmuring, "Bon appetit," and retreated to the kitchen, where the hum of stoves and clattering dishes drowned out the couple's laughter echoing in his mind. Huntington had built Le Chateau from nothing. 10 years ago, he'd been a broke college student, scraping by on odd jobs while dreaming of a place where fine dining met inclusivity. His partner, Miguel Torres, had been his rock through it all. The architect who designed the sleek interior, the confidant who encouraged him when investors laughed at a young gay man's ambition. They met in a support group for LGBTQ+ entrepreneurs, where Miguel's fiery passion for justice matched Huntington's quiet determination. Their relationship wasn't flashy. It was built on late nights poring over blueprints, shared glances during stressful openings, and the unspoken understanding that, in a world quick to judge, they had each other's backs. But the Hargroves didn't know that. Jonathan, a hedge fund manager with a penthouse overlooking Central Park, chuckled at his wife's comment. "Probably. Vic bet he lives in some rundown apartment in Brooklyn, dreaming of Broadway." They sipped their wine, oblivious to the servers exchanging knowing looks. Huntington, back in the kitchen, wiped his hands on his apron and took a deep breath. He wasn't just the waiter tonight. He was undercover, filling in for a no-show staffer to keep things running smoothly. It was a habit from the early days when every role mattered. As the evening progressed, the couple's barbs grew bolder. When Huntington returned to take their entree orders, Victoria eyed him up and down. "Sweetie, that tie is so colorful," trying to make a statement. Her tone dripped with faux sweetness, but the implication was clear. Mockery veiled as curiosity. Jonathan joined in. "Yeah, kid, you got that vibe. Ever think about a real job? This gig can't pay much." Huntington smiled tightly, jotting down their requests for filet mignon and lobster thermidor. Inside, a storm brewed. He'd faced homophobia before, whispers in boardrooms, outright rejections from suppliers who didn't want to associate with his kind. But this, in his sanctuary, felt personal. Miguel watched from the bar, where he was pretending to be a customer to observe operations. His dark eyes narrowed as he caught the exchange. He and Huntington had argued about this before. Miguel wanted to confront bigots head-on, while Huntington preferred subtlety, believing change came through excellence, not confrontation. "Let them eat their words," Huntington had said once, after a similar incident. But Miguel's fists clenched under the table. He texted Huntington, "You okay? Want me to step in?" Huntington glanced at his phone in the back, replying quickly, "Not yet. Let's see how this plays out." The restaurant buzzed with the elite of New York, politicians, celebrities, influencers, all drawn to Le Chateau's reputation for impeccable service and innovative cuisine. Huntington had poured his soul into it, infusing dishes with flavors from his Mexican heritage blended with French techniques. It was more than a business. It was a statement against the barriers he'd shattered. Growing up in a conservative family in Texas, coming out had cost him everything. Parents who disowned him, friends who vanished. Miguel's story mirrored his. A Puerto Rican immigrant whose family clung to traditional values, forcing him to choose between love and legacy. By the time the Mains arrived, the Hargroves were tipsy, their voices carrying. "Imagine if our son turned out like that," Victoria said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "God forbid. We'd have to disown him." Jonathan nodded vigorously. Absolutely. Can't have that in the family. Ruins everything. Huntington set their plates down with precision, his face a mask of professionalism. But his mind raced. Their son? He recalled a reservation note. The Hargroves had a college-aged boy, attending NYU. Fate had a twisted sense of humor. In the kitchen, Huntington leaned against the counter, heart pounding. He thought of the nights he and Miguel had spent fighting for equality, volunteering at Pride events, donating to LGBTQ+ causes. Their love was quiet but profound, marked by small gestures. Miguel's hand on his back during tough days, shared dreams of adoption someday. But moments like this tested Huntington's resolve. Was silence complicity? Or was revenge sweeter served cold? As dessert orders came in, the couple escalated. "Hey, waiter!" Jonathan called out, snapping his fingers. "This wine is off. And hurry up, we're important people." Huntington nodded, replacing the bottle without argument. But inside he seethed. Miguel caught his eye from across the room, mouthing, "Enough!" Huntington shook his head slightly. The night was far from over. The hum of conversation in Le Chateau swelled as the evening deepened. But for Huntington, the air felt thick with unspoken tension. He moved through the dining room like a shadow, anticipating needs before they arose. A skill honed from years of navigating hostility with grace. Yet each interaction with the Hargroves chipped away at his composure. Victoria's laugh, sharp and artificial, pierced the ambience when Huntington cleared their plates. "Oh, honey, look at him. Such delicate hands. Bet he does drag on weekends." Jonathan snorted, emboldened by the wine. "Probably. Explains the service. All flair, no substance." They didn't bother lowering their voices, assuming Huntington was beneath notice. But he heard every word, each one a reminder of the prejudices that lingered in even the most progressive cities. New York prided itself on diversity, but in pockets of wealth like this, old biases festered, disguised as banter. Back in the kitchen, Huntington paused to steady himself. His sous chef, Lena, a fierce ally who'd marched with him at Pride, shot him a concerned look. "Boss, why are you taking this? Kick them out." Huntington sighed. "Not yet. Let them dig their hole." He glanced at his phone. Another text from Miguel. "I'm coming over." Before Huntington could respond, Miguel appeared at the swinging door, his architect's poise masking the fire in his eyes. "We can't let this slide," Miguel whispered urgently. "It's not just about us. It's about every queer kid out there facing this crap." Huntington pulled him aside, their hands brushing in a brief, comforting touch. "I know, mi amor, but confrontation now might scare off other customers. We've worked too hard." Their relationship had always balanced like this. Miguel's passion pushing Huntington out of his shell, Huntington's caution grounding Miguel's impulses. It was what made them strong, even in moments of doubt. Miguel's background fueled his intensity. Raised in a tight-knit community in San Juan, he'd hidden his sexuality until college, when a brutal rejection from his father forced him to rebuild alone. Meeting Huntington had been a lifeline. Their first date, a quiet coffee in a rainy cafe, blossomed into a partnership that weathered storms. They dreamed of a world where love like theirs wasn't a battle, but reality often intruded. Out in the dining room, the Hargroves waved impatiently for their check. Huntington approached, bill in hand. "Was everything to your satisfaction?" he asked, voice even. Victoria smirked. "Barely. Service was entertaining, though. Tell me, do you have a boyfriend? Or is it more of a partner thing?" The word partner twisted like a slur in her mouth. Jonathan leaned back, arms crossed. "Yes, Bill. We're curious about your lifestyle." Huntington's jaw tightened. This wasn't curiosity. It was invasion, a demand to perform for their amusement. He thought of the countless times he'd deflected such questions, protecting his privacy in a world that commodified difference. "My personal life isn't part of the service," he replied calmly. But inside, anger simmered. Miguel, now seated nearby, overheard and stood, his chair scraping loudly. "Excuse me," Miguel said, approaching the table with measured steps. "I couldn't help but notice your comments. As a patron, I find them offensive." The Hargroves turned, surprise flickering across their faces. Jonathan puffed up. "Mind your business, pal. We're just joking." Victoria added, "Lighten up. It's not like we're homophobes or anything." Miguel's eyes met Huntington's, a silent communication passing between them. "Jokes at someone's expense aren't funny," Miguel countered, "especially when they're based on stereotypes." The exchange drew subtle glances from other tables, the restaurant's buzz quieting slightly. Huntington intervened, placing the check down. "Gentlemen, madam, perhaps we can settle this amicably." But Jonathan wasn't done. "Who are you anyway? Some activist crashing our night?" Miguel smiled thinly. "I'm Miguel Torres, and this is my partner's restaurant." The slip was intentional, a test. Victoria's eyes widened. "Partner? As in, business or?" Jonathan interrupted. "Wait, you're saying this waiter owns the place? Bullshit." Huntington straightened, shedding the waiter persona like a skin. "Actually, yes. I'm Huntington Rivera, the owner." The words hung in the air, a revelation that shifted the power dynamic. The Hargroves froze, color draining from their faces. Victoria stammered. "But you were serving us." "Why?" Huntington met her gaze steadily. "To ensure everything runs perfectly, and to remind myself where I started." The silence stretched, broken only by the clink of distant glasses. Jonathan recovered first, forcing a laugh. "Well, that's impressive. Didn't mean any harm." But his eyes darted, embarrassment mingling with defensiveness. Miguel stood beside Huntington, their shoulders touching, a united front. In that moment, their bond felt unbreakable, a testament to the love that had carried them through rejection and triumph. As the couple fumbled for their credit card, whispers rippled through the room. Some patrons nodded approvingly, others averted their eyes. Huntington felt a mix of vindication and weariness. This wasn't just about one night. It was a microcosm of the struggles queer people faced, being underestimated, ridiculed, then forced to prove worth. Miguel squeezed his hand discreetly. "Proud of you," he murmured. The Hargroves paid quickly, leaving a meager tip. As they stood to leave, Victoria paused. "We apologize if we offended." But her tone lacked sincerity, more a salvage of pride than genuine remorse. Jonathan muttered, "Yeah, sorry. Great food, though." They hurried out, the door chiming behind them. In the aftermath, the restaurant returned to normal, but for Huntington and Miguel, the evening lingered. They retreated to the office upstairs, where Miguel pulled Huntington into a hug. "You handled that masterfully." Huntington sighed against his shoulder. "Did I? Or did I let it go too far?" Their conversation turned introspective, weighing the cost of silence versus the risk of escalation. It was these moments that deepened their connection, turning adversity into intimacy. The city lights twinkled outside the office window, casting a soft glow on Huntington and Miguel as they decompressed from the chaos below. Huntington sank into the leather chair, rubbing his temples. "I should have shut them down sooner, but part of me wanted them to expose themselves." Miguel perched on the desk, his hand resting on Huntington's knee, a simple touch that grounded them both. "You did what felt right. And look, we turned it into a lesson." Their relationship had always thrived on such reflections. Early on, when Le Chateau was just a concept, they'd faced skepticism from lenders who questioned if two gay men could run a high-end spot. "Too risky," one banker had said, eyes avoiding theirs. It fueled their drive, turning doubt into determination. Miguel, with his design flair, created a space that was elegant yet welcoming, free from the stuffiness of traditional fine dining. Huntington's culinary vision complemented it perfectly, blending cultures in dishes that told stories. But tonight's incident unearthed deeper wounds. Huntington thought of his estrangement from his family, the letters he'd written begging for understanding, only to receive silence. Miguel's father had been more vocal, calling their love unnatural before cutting ties. These scars made every microaggression feel like salt in an open cut. "Do you think they'll learn anything?" Huntington asked softly. Miguel shrugged. "Maybe. Or maybe they'll just complain on some elite forum about woke restaurants." Downstairs, the staff buzzed with the story. Lena approached Huntington when he returned. "Boss, that was epic. But are you okay?" He nodded, though uncertainty gnawed at him. Owning the place gave him power, but it didn't erase the humiliation. He wondered about the Hargrove's son. Did he know his parents' views? What if he was struggling with his own identity? The next day, news of the encounter spread subtly through social circles. A patron had overheard and tweeted anonymously, "Witnessed rich couple mock gay waiter at fancy spot. Turns out he owns it. Karma." It went viral in niche LGBTQ+ communities, sparking debates on classism and homophobia. Huntington scrolled through the comments in bed that night, Miguel's head on his chest. "See? It's starting conversations," Miguel said. But not all reactions were positive. Some accused Huntington of entrapment, arguing he should have revealed his status earlier. Others defended the Hargroves, claiming it was just jokes. The discourse highlighted societal rifts, how privilege blinded people to their biases. Huntington felt torn. Visibility brought validation but also vulnerability. Weeks later, an unexpected email arrived from Ethan Hargrove, the couple's son. "I heard what happened. I'm sorry for my parents. And I'm gay too. Can we talk?" Huntington stared at the screen, heart racing. Miguel read over his shoulder. This could be huge. They met Ethan at a neutral cafe, the young man nervous but earnest. "They don't know I'm here, but after hearing about that night, I couldn't stay silent." Ethan's story poured out. Years of hiding, fearing rejection. The anniversary dinner had been a facade, his parents oblivious to his pain. Huntington listened, empathy swelling. "I know that fear," he shared. "It took me years to come out." Miguel added his experiences, creating a bridge of understanding. For Ethan, it was a lifeline, mentorship from those who'd survived similar battles. The meeting shifted something in Huntington. He realized his silence that night hadn't been weakness. It had been strategy, leading to this moment of connection. But it also ignited internal conflict. Should he confront the Hargroves directly? Miguel advocated for it. They need to face consequences. Huntington hesitated, weighing forgiveness against accountability. As their bond with Ethan grew, tensions mounted. Ethan confided plans to come out, dreading his parents' reaction. Huntington and Miguel offered support, but it stirred memories of their own traumas. One evening, over dinner at home, Miguel voiced frustrations. "We fight for equality, but when it hits close, it's exhausting." Huntington nodded, pulling him close. Their love was a refuge, but the world demanded constant vigilance. The climax built when Jonathan Hargrove called the restaurant, demanding a private apology event, framed as making amends. Huntington laughed bitterly. "They want to save face." Miguel urged rejection, but Huntington saw opportunity. "Let's invite them and Ethan." It was risky, potentially explosive, but logic dictated confrontation could foster change. The dinner was set, a private room at Le Chateau. The Hargroves arrived polished, expecting deference. Ethan entered last, his presence a shock. "What are you doing here?" Victoria gasped. Ethan stood tall. "Mom, Dad, I'm gay. And these men helped me realize I don't have to hide." The room erupted. Jonathan blustered. "This is a setup." Victoria teared up, denial cracking. Accusations flew, Huntington and Miguel accused of manipulation, the Hargroves of bigotry. But amid the chaos, raw emotions surfaced. Victoria admitted fears rooted in her upbringing. Jonathan confessed societal pressures. It wasn't resolution, but a crack in the facade. Huntington watched, heart heavy. This was the drama of real life. Messy, painful, but potentially transformative. Miguel's hand found his under the table, a silent anchor. In the aftermath of the explosive dinner, the private room at Le Chateau felt like a battlefield, strewn with half-eaten dishes and unspoken regrets. Jonathan Hargrove paced, his face flushed with a mix of anger and confusion. You ambushed us, using our son against us. Victoria sat stunned, mascara streaking her cheeks as she stared at Ethan. How long have you felt this way? Her voice cracked, revealing a vulnerability beneath the polished exterior. Ethan, bolstered by Huntington and Miguel's presence, held his ground. Years, Mom. But I was scared because of comments like the ones you made here. The words landed like blows, forcing the couple to confront their role in his silence. Huntington interjected gently, "This isn't about blame, it's about understanding." Miguel nodded, his protective instincts flaring but tempered by Huntington's calm. The conversation unraveled layers of prejudice. Jonathan admitted his mockery stemmed from insecurity, fear that associating with different people could tarnish his reputation in conservative business circles. "It's cutthroat out there," he said defensively. Victoria shared stories of her strict religious upbringing, where deviation from norms meant exile. "I didn't want that for you, Ethan." But their excuses rang hollow against the pain they'd caused. Huntington shared his journey, voice steady but laced with emotion. "I lost my family too, but I built a new one with Miguel with this restaurant." Miguel added, "Love isn't a threat. It's what makes us human." The exchange humanized them all, turning adversaries into reluctant mirrors. Ethan teared up, hugging his parents tentatively. It wasn't instant forgiveness, but a tentative step toward dialogue. Outside, the city pulsed with indifferent energy, oblivious to the microdrama unfolding. For Huntington, the night crystallized the complexities of identity. Owning Le Chateau gave him agency, but it didn't shield him from hurt. He and Miguel walked home hand in hand, the cool night air clearing their minds. "Think it'll stick?" Miguel asked. Huntington squeezed his hand. "Maybe. Change is slow." The incident rippled outward. Ethan's coming out inspired him to volunteer at LGBTQ+ centers, where he met others navigating similar paths. The Hargroves, humbled, sought therapy. Jonathan even donated to equality causes, albeit quietly, but not without backlash. Friends distanced themselves, labeling them soft. It highlighted the social costs of allyship, fueling online debates. Were the Hargroves genuine or performing penance? Huntington grappled with his choices. Had he manipulated the situation by involving Ethan? Miguel reassured him, "You gave him a platform. That's empowerment." Their relationship deepened through these trials, late-night talks evolving into plans for expansion. A chain of inclusive eateries. But doubts lingered. Huntington wondered if his undercover role that fateful night perpetuated the very stereotypes he fought. Months later, a review appeared in a prominent food magazine, Le Chateau, where fine dining meets social reckoning. It praised the cuisine but delved into the Hargrove story, anonymized but recognizable. Comments exploded, some hailed Huntington as a hero, others criticized him for public shaming. The controversy boosted business, drawing supportive crowds, but also protesters claiming cancel culture gone mad. One evening, as Huntington prepped for service, a familiar face entered. Jonathan, alone. "Can we talk?" Over coffee, he apologized sincerely. "I was wrong. Ethan's happier now, and that's because of you." Huntington accepted, but probed deeper. "What about your views?" Jonathan paused. "Still working on it, but I'm trying." The encounter left Huntington reflective. Progress wasn't linear. It was fraught with setbacks. Miguel, sensing his mood, planned a surprise getaway. A weekend in the Hamptons, where they could recharge. On the beach, waves crashing, Miguel proposed formally. "We've built so much. Let's make it official." Huntington said yes, tears mixing with sea spray. Their love, tested by fire, emerged stronger. But the story didn't end in bliss. Back in the city, a rival restaurateur, sensing vulnerability, spread rumors about Le Chateau's agenda, scaring off conservative clients. Sales dipped, forcing tough decisions. Huntington laid off staff temporarily, guilt weighing heavy. Miguel rallied, "We'll pivot, focus on our community." It was a test of resilience, echoing their early struggles. Through it all, Ethan's family mended slowly. Holiday dinners included awkward but honest talks, bridging gaps. Victoria even visited the restaurant, complimenting Huntington personally. "You've created something special." It was validation, but Huntington knew the fight continued. As the year turned, Huntington stood in his kitchen, surveying the team. Pride swelled, not just in the business but in the lives touched. Miguel wrapped an arm around him. "We did good." Their journey, from mockery to mentorship, underscored the power of vulnerability. Yet questions remained, sparking endless debates in forums and dinners alike. The seasons shifted in Manhattan, bringing a crisp autumn that mirrored the evolving dynamics in Huntington's world. Le Chateau thrived despite the dips, its reputation as a beacon of inclusivity drawing a diverse clientele. Huntington and Miguel's engagement announcement, shared quietly among friends, became a symbol of hope. But beneath the surface, conflicts simmered. Reminders that acceptance was a battlefield, not a destination. Ethan's relationship with his parents improved incrementally. Weekend visits turned into candid discussions, where Jonathan grappled with unlearning biases. "I see now how my words hurt," he admitted during one call to Huntington. Victoria baked apology pies, her way of bridging the divide. Yet Ethan confided in Huntington, "It's progress, but sometimes I wonder if it's real or just to keep me around." The doubt reflected broader societal issues, how genuine change often battled performative allyship. Huntington faced his own reckonings. A lawsuit threat from a disgruntled former patron, echoing the Hargrove incident, loomed. Defamation, the claim read, accusing him of orchestrating humiliations. Miguel fumed. "This is retaliation." They hired a lawyer, draining resources, but it forced Huntington to question his methods. "Did I go too far?" he asked Miguel one sleepless night. "No," Miguel replied firmly. "You stood up. That's courage." Their wedding planning provided respite, simple vows in Central Park, surrounded by chosen family. Lena officiated, her speech highlighting their resilience. "In a world that tries to dim your light, you shine brighter together." Guests included Ethan, who brought a tentative date, his first public step. The Hargroves attended, awkward but present, a testament to uneasy truces. But drama resurfaced when a viral video from the anniversary night leaked. Grainy footage capturing the mockery. Online sleuths identified the Hargroves, igniting cancel campaigns. Jonathan's firm suffered boycotts. Victoria's social circle shrank. They reached out to Huntington. "Help us fix this." He hesitated, empathy clashing with justice. "You started it," Miguel argued. "But ending the cycle might heal more," Huntington countered. They mediated a joint statement, emphasizing growth over grudge. The experience deepened Huntington's understanding of forgiveness's complexity. It wasn't absolution. It was strategic, preventing bitterness from consuming him. Miguel, ever the firebrand, learned patience from Huntington, their differences strengthening their bond. Late evenings found them on their balcony, discussing dreams, adopting a child, expanding advocacy. Yet external pressures mounted. Anti-LGBTQ+ legislation in other states rippled into New York, emboldening bigots. A protest outside Le Chateau targeted promoting agendas. Shattering a window, Huntington surveyed the damage, heart sinking. "Why us?" Miguel pulled him close. "Because we're visible, and that scares them." In response, they hosted fundraisers, turning adversity into action. Ethan spoke at one, sharing his story. "My parents' mistake led to my truth." The event raised thousands, but sparked counter-protests, highlighting polarized views. Media dubbed it the restaurant reckoning, debating if personal confrontations advanced equality or deepened divides. As winter approached, Huntington reflected on the journey, from a mocked waiter to a community pillar. His love with Miguel, once hidden, now inspired others. But scars remained. Family estrangements unresolved, societal battles ongoing. One quiet night, Huntington wrote in his journal, "Is victory in the fight, or in the peace that follows?" The story of that anniversary night evolved into legend, whispered in queer circles as a tale of karma and compassion. It challenged assumptions, forcing reckonings on privilege, prejudice, and redemption. In the end, as Huntington locked up Le Chateau under starry skies, he pondered the core question that lingered for all involved. Was it right for the Hargroves to face public consequences for their private bigotry, or should mercy have shielded them from the fallout?